Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and yes, that's right, the Nintendo Direct we've been hearing about that would be tomorrow, Tuesday, June 9th, is happening exactly then, tomorrow, Tuesday, June 9th of 2026, at 7 AM Pacific Time, 10 AM Eastern Time. It's confirmed, and there's going to be a big treehouse to follow immediately afterwards. So I'm going to be diving into my full thoughts on this, telling you what I make of this, considering everything we know already, and also covering some extra little leaks here and there about what may show up in the presentation. The video will be divided into these two different halves, so if you're trying to avoid spoilers and you're worried about these leaks spoiling things for you, don't worry, there will be a clear divide here so you can avoid those spoilers if you're worried about that. But yeah, we have some very huge things to get into today. So, as Nintendo of America had tweeted here, join us on June 9th at 7 AM Pacific Time for a Nintendo Direct followed by a Nintendo Treehouse Live. This part was not necessarily expected, but this is also typically a sign of a really big new wave of Nintendo titles. When Nintendo puts out a Treehouse, it kind of feels like that next big push from Nintendo here. Now, what they say about the Direct itself, the Nintendo Direct will be roughly 50 minutes, so it's not the 60 minutes as we've seen in the last two giant general Directs. However, they also say, and Nintendo Treehouse Live will be 95 minutes. So, all in all, we're looking at nearly 2.5 hours of content here from Nintendo showing off their next wave of games that I think is probably fair to assume, for the most part, will be about this second half of 2026. I've already done my predictions. My predictions, for the most part, have not changed. That video came out a few days ago. I'll have it in the iCard here if you want to check that out. But yes, I will be live streaming this event tomorrow morning. We will watch the Direct, we will watch the Treehouse, and then soon after, all the different trailer analysis for all the big different Nintendo games will come out. That'll be there, so if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. That's what I do. I talk about Nintendo when there is news, or theorize about when there will be news and what that may contain. And one of the big theories that we've been talking about for a very long time, for years, is the Ocarina of Time remake. I do believe this is going to be here. I'm very excited about this. Maybe that's going to be part of the Treehouse. I'm super curious on that. One thing I feel confident about saying will be in the Treehouse, though, is the Duskbloods. The Duskbloods is a title that Nintendo is publishing. They're working with From Software to get this out on Switch 2. It's a big exclusive. Based off the reports, we're expecting this to come out later into the year, around the holidays. We'll see exactly when that lines up. But this is a title I think it really makes a lot of sense for us to see some actual gameplay here, because this is a new concept. They're doing something different with the Duskbloods, unlike prior From Software titles. It's a PvPvE game, so it's player versus enemy, and from we've come to understand from the interviews about this game, it is going to be an online multiplayer game, but there's also going to be a lot of interesting events, different things going on, and there's going to be kind of like a politics involved. Like, you can make choices about who you fight, who you team up with, and there's a lot of potential dynamics there that could lead to some very interesting gameplay possibilities, but we haven't seen this in motion. We haven't seen this fleshed out, fully detailed, so I imagine we'll probably see that during the Treehouse. That's my big bet there. I do have that prediction about Luigi's Mansion 4. This might be a great place to show that too, and of course, showing off beautiful gameplay of The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time if it is more than just a simple remake, which I think it is going to be something at least along the lines of Star Fox, but perhaps more. That makes tons of sense. Now, I consider other possibilities. The Treehouse could have Splatoon Raiders, it could have Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, or Star Fox, and honestly, those make a lot of sense to show up in the Treehouse too, and with it only being 95 minutes long, maybe we can't see segments on all of these, because if each game gets a 30-minute segment, then, well, that would be way more than 95 minutes, but if we're talking about 15 to 20-minute segments for these different games, then we could perhaps see a handful of them, and everything I brought up, maybe one or two of those don't actually show up in the Treehouse, but still, I do think most of what I mentioned will probably be in this presentation to follow the Direct. And so, reminder again, I will be streaming this tomorrow morning. We're going to be watching it all. It's going to be an exciting time. I will see you there. But before getting into the fresh batch of leaks we have to discuss today, let me tell you a bit about this controller. There have certainly been a lot of different controllers I've tried out over the last couple years, but these Hyperion 3 magnetic split controllers from Nixie, they feel special. There's something about these that I've noticed that are very appealing here. Firstly, you have the Hall effect joysticks, you have that precision, you have that trust that these are going to last. There's certainly a quality feel to it all, and that also includes the grips. They are very ergonomic. You'll notice that these are a bit more sizable than your typical Switch 2 Joy-Cons, but they're also a lot more comfortable to hold. In handheld mode, or if you take them off and hold them individually, that feels really good too. I think a lot of people don't normally hold the Joy-Cons separately, but playing it as one controller. I actually think it's a very underrated way to play games, and I do think that with the Joy-Cons, even the Joy-Con 2s, because of their size, a lot of people don't necessarily really think of them as controllers that work really well in that manner. But with these, because of the ergonomic grips, because of that extra size and how comfortable they are to hold for longer stints, I really do feel like it works in this way as well. And of course, like with handheld mode, you'll find yourself being able to play for longer stints on top of that. But overall, the controller, the buttons, the control sticks, the triggers, it all feels super snappy, super comfortable. And I really do like the aesthetic of this controller with the lights. It's very, very cool. But perhaps what stands out to me the most about these controllers is just how well it connects to the Switch 2. That magnetic connection, that snap, it's so satisfying. It's just like the Joy-Con 2s, except now you have this really nice ergonomic grip. So I do see myself using these controllers quite a bit. I think they're really cool. I recommend checking them out. There will be a link in the description below. And now getting into the leaks. So it looks like there is some kind of Wario game that is in the works. It's not necessarily going to be coming out this year. It's not necessarily going to be in the Nintendo Direct, but it might be. As reported here by Go Nintendo, leaker No Arms and No Legs may not be one of the bigger names when it comes to insiders, but they've certainly been gaining notoriety in recent months. In the last few weeks, they've been spot on with their leaks pertaining to Rayman Legends Retold and Spyro A Realm Reborn. Now they are claiming a new Wario project is in the works, and so going to what this person actually said here on Twitter, they said, "Oh yeah, highly doubt it would be announced next week, and if so, if I'm leaking the next Nintendo Direct or not, but a new Wario game is coming. Wahaha." And so, yeah, that's the leak, that some kind of Wario game is coming. What's interesting about this is that we just got the announcement of Picto Nico, this new Nintendo mobile game that has a lot of WarioWare vibes. Now, at the end of the day, it is a mobile game. I don't think it replaces the need to have a new WarioWare on the Switch 2. But I'll also throw out the possibility that maybe this new Wario game isn't a WarioWare title, which is essentially a minigame compilation. But what if we're just looking at a new Wario title that isn't WarioWare? It's been a long time. Seeing a new Wario platformer would be pretty awesome. So we'll see what comes of this new Wario title. Again, the rumor isn't necessarily for this Direct, but if you see it tomorrow, well, we heard about it beforehand. Now, something else interesting, Luigi Blood on Blue Sky talked about an update coming to the Nintendo Classics app that they discovered. So, as he says here, so for some reason, NES, SNES, Game Boy, Nintendo Classic apps have been updated to a major version bump. I have looked very quick, please wait a bit for me to look deeper, but it is worth the major update. Luigi Blood follows up, they have implemented challenges. Stuff akin to NES Remix, not the remix kind from what I can tell though. You cannot access them yet, you have to wait until the NSO app updates. I will not reveal the games, y'all will probably find out soon. So maybe this is something that's announced in the Nintendo Direct, where it's an update to the app where certain games have certain challenges to give you a little bit more options to enjoy them. That's interesting. It'll certainly give me more reason to go back to the app and play with these games. Perhaps this is something that will be announced in the Nintendo Direct. We'll see. Now, I do want to give a shout out to Attack the Backlog, who recently said he is stepping away from leaks because he was one of the few people who mentioned that Nintendo may have a big presence at Summer Games Fest, and while I actually do think they did, it was more so in terms of third parties being involved, like Alien Isolation, Resident Evil Veronica, Monster Hunter Wilds, having its big expansion essentially getting announced. However, even though that wasn't in the show announced for Switch 2, later on they announced that Monster Hunter is coming to Switch 2, and then also Final Fantasy Revelation and more. Nintendo Switch 2 was clearly having a big presence in the presentation, but there weren't first-party announcements, and so there were a few people who had talked about how that kind of stuff might be there, wasn't there. He apologized, acknowledging having been wrong about this leak, and he said that if he was wrong about a leak, he would step away. However, he also said that there will be a Direct on June 9th, and, well, that's been confirmed. And these are just his predictions here, but me just saying what I think might show up here that we haven't talked about before. I wouldn't be surprised if there's something to Kingdom Hearts. I do think ATB has been teasing at that. We shall see. Perhaps these are the last of Attack the Backlog's leaks, but ATB's had a great run, and I still think he's had one of the best track records amongst leakers ever. No one gets them all right. And actually, there's one more leak to discuss here. A few people have brought this up to me, and I wasn't sure if maybe there was just some false screens going around or something, but I literally saw it for myself. I think Nintendo accidentally leaked Resident Evil 2 Remake coming to Nintendo Switch 2, which is interesting because, well, we've heard about the Resident Evil Remake supposedly needing to come. Attack the Backlog had actually indicated before, among others, such as Nash Weedle, who also had told us about the June 9th Nintendo Direct date, by the way, and Jeff Grubb. But anyway, we've heard about Resident Evil remakes coming. I predicted we'd be seeing them in this Nintendo Direct a few days ago, and now Nintendo has at least apparently leaked Resident Evil 2 Remake coming to Switch 2, because as you see here, in the news section, there's some art from some different games. You see Resident Evil Requiem, but also right next to it, Resident Evil 2 Remake, which is interesting that they have that there. I don't think that was intentional, because the Direct hasn't happened yet, but it will be happening tomorrow, where I now feel even more confident about that prediction of the Resident Evil remakes getting announced for Switch 2, 2, 3, and 4. And that's pretty much in terms of leaks. Nate the Hate did just put out his predictions podcast. Many of you may be aware that Nate the Hate is considered to be one of the most notable, credible leakers there are. Even he sometimes gets things wrong, to be clear. No one gets everything right, so of course you gotta take all the leaks, or potential leaks I should say, with a grain of salt. And also, these are his predictions with Modern Vintage Gamer, not necessarily leaks, but he pretty much just talked about the things that have already been discussed beforehand. However, he did bring up something having to do with Switch Sports, Pikmin 4 Switch 2 Edition, and some kind of enhancement for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Again, that's the one where there's been some debate if it's just kind of something he wants, something he's predicting, but not necessarily putting out as a leak. The fact that Nate the Hate has been consistent about bringing up Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Definitive Edition or Switch 2 Edition, whatever exactly they do with that, I do find very curious. Of course, again, we'll see what actually shows up in the Nintendo Direct tomorrow. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.